They say some nights change everything, even if they last only a few hours. And in a silent city where everyone rushed through life without looking back, I met someone who made the whole world pause. This isn't a story of perfect love. It's a story of a moment that stayed with me long after she was gone. The night had fallen softly over the old city, filling the streets with a calm that felt almost unreal. Streetlights glowed like lonely stars, and the river beside the bridge shimmered with reflections of a world that was half asleep. I walked the same path I had walked for years, quiet, unnoticed, invisible. My life had become a routine of silence. Books were my friends. Dreams were my home, and the city was just a place where I existed, not lived. But that night, destiny was waiting for me on that very bridge. She was sitting on the stone railing, her back slightly hunched, wiping tears she hadn't meant anyone to see. For a moment, I wondered if I should keep walking, because people like me rarely know how to interrupt someone's pain. But something pulled me toward her. "Are you okay?" I whispered. She looked up. Her eyes were warm but tired, filled with stories I couldn't yet understand. "I don't know," she said softly. "Tonight, I just didn't want to cry alone." Her name was Nayla. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but her smile, small, fragile, held more strength than she believed. We talked for minutes that felt like hours. She told me she lived with her grandmother, in a small house where she once felt loved, safe, and hopeful. She told me she had been waiting for a man who had once loved her deeply. He had lived in their attic, made promises, spoke dreams into her heart, and left to build a better future. He promised he'd return, but a year had passed, and silence had taken his place. When the cold breeze brushed past us, she hugged her arms tightly. Instinctively, I offered her my jacket. She hesitated, then accepted, whispering a quiet "thank you" that warmed me more than the night ever could. When she finally stood up to leave, she looked at me with a sincerity I hadn't seen in years. "Will you meet me here again tomorrow?" That single sentence felt like a sunrise in my lonely world. The next evening, I reached earlier than I should have. The city was still stretching into the night when Nayla arrived, walking toward me with a smile that made the air lighter. We walked along the river once again. She talked more freely this time, about her grandmother's stories, her fear of being forgotten, how she felt trapped between hope and heartbreak. The more she spoke, the more I felt myself drifting toward her world, a world far brighter than mine. I told her little about myself, not because I didn't trust her, but because after years of loneliness, I had forgotten how to speak about my own heart. Yet, with her, words came easier. We shared laughter that echoed gently across the water. At one point she stopped, looked at me and said, "You listen, like it matters." And for the first time in years, I felt seen. Another night passed, and another. Each night, she brought pieces of her heart, and unknowingly, she took pieces of mine. One evening, as we sat watching the moon carve silver paths across the river, she told me how she met the man she still waited for, how he had lived under her grandmother's roof, how they had shared dreams under the dim light of the attic window, how he promised to return when life became kinder. As she spoke, her eyes glowed with memories that did not include me. I felt something inside me break a little. I was falling for her, quietly, hopelessly. But she belonged to a memory, not to me. Still, I stayed. Because sometimes loving someone means simply being there, even when you know they might choose someone else. On what became our fourth night together, she arrived late, breathless, excited, nervous. She held a letter in her hand. "He wrote," she whispered, "he's coming tomorrow." I forced a smile, though my chest felt heavy. "That's good," I said. "You deserve happiness." She threw her arms around me. I froze for a moment before hugging her back. She smelled of jasmine and cold night air. "You made these nights special," she said. "I'll never forget you." I didn't trust my voice, so I stayed silent. The following day passed slowly. The city seemed brighter, but I felt dimmer. Evening finally arrived, and I found myself walking again to the same bridge, hoping for something that made no sense. Maybe she'd come. Maybe she'd say she changed her mind. Maybe destiny would choose me for once. I waited. Minutes turned to hours. The sky shifted from gold to pink to deep blue. People walked by, laughing, rushing, living. But she didn't come. A part of me already knew she wouldn't. Some stories are written only for a few nights, not a lifetime. As I walked away from the bridge, I whispered into the cool darkness, "Thank you for the nights you gave me." Years passed, life moved on, but every time I crossed that bridge, a soft ache stirred in my chest. Not of regret, but of gratitude. Because she taught me something no one else ever had. That even the loneliest hearts can feel alive again with one kind smile. A few shared nights, and a memory that refuses to fade. Some love stories don't need a forever. Some love stories are beautiful simply because they happened. And this was ours.